When it comes to sales, you got to take chances. If you're really trying to succeed, you can't just sit around and be timid. You got to go out there and just make it happen. You got to have accountability. You got to be disciplined. And on today's episode, my guest is going to talk about his experience, how he applied all of this when he does cold outreach, and a specific example, and how that helped him to land an amazing job and to literally change his life. I mean, seriously, change his life. You're going to love it. Hey, everyone. Welcome to another great episode of the Sales Evangelist Podcast. I'm your host, Donald C. Kelly, the Sales Evangelist. And I'm so excited for another great episode. I am so excited to be here with you today. And my guest is an individual named Mr. Jeremy Chen. Now, Jeremy, he has a fun, amazing story. I want to tell you a little bit more about his background, which was I found to be exciting because it's like it feels like kindred spirit when I connect with Jeremy. Here's why. Jeremy and his team have only relied on cold outreach as their primary ways to getting net new business. They built a 100-plus seat call center using cold calls as a way of net new business. I mean, this guy understands, loves, utilize, inhales cold outreach. And you're going to see from the episode today, Jeremy has spent most of his career in sales and business development, and he actually loves sharing the knowledge that he's learned. That's one of the beautiful things about sales. When you find something that works, it's important that you share that with people, help the folks behind you when you found success. And on today's episode, he's going to do exactly that. You're going to hear his story about how he made a phone call to an individual based on a recommendation, and how this phone call literally transformed his life as an individual and as a sales professional. If this is your first time listening to this podcast, please subscribe. Share this link with one other person. Just take that link and share it with one other person. They're going to really love it. As we dive in, you'll get a chance to understand a little bit more about Jeremy, get to understand his story a little bit deeper. And as we dissect it, you'll see how and what you need to do on a day-to-day basis to improve your outreach skills. Let's dive in. Jeremy, welcome to the show.
Glad to be here, brother.
I'm excited to talk to you today. I remember in our pre-interview, you told me a story, and it was like this is going to be a fun episode. So as I mentioned in the teaser, y'all, this is going to be fun. So make sure to connect with Jeremy as well. Jeremy, talk to us a little bit more about what you do right now, because I think it would be advantageous for folks to kind of learn a little bit more about you besides all the stuff that I told them.
Yeah, doing a lot of sales enablement work right now with sales teams from all different industries, but mainly focusing on how to get them better, solid, more attractive looking pipelines, and doing that through cold calls.
Why are you so passionate about this? Why are you so passionate about cold call, especially when it comes to enablement?
It saved my life, man.
Interesting. Some people might say, well, Jeremy's just being dramatic here. He's on a podcast. It saved your life. What do you mean? What happened that it saved your life?
And I think all forms of marketing and sales are great. Email marketing is a hot topic right now. You got all forms of advertising out there, and I think they're all fantastic. When the chips were down for me and I was looking for something, whether it be the next deal, the next job, or whatever, the cold call has really got me there. And so when I had nothing else to fall back on, I leaned on the cold call. And so when I say it saved my life, it paid my bills, it gave me a life I dreamt of affording, So I think that above all else, I do owe what I learned to the next generation so that they can get some of that too. I think it's a really special thing.
And once you're saying that, I felt it, right? Not in I don't want people to feel like this is all going to be just like, feely, but there is something that I really felt from that. Like when you pick up the phone, when you actually reach out to someone, you have a capability of connecting with another human being. And a high percentage of salespeople it's in their job description, but not a high percentage of salespeople actually do it or do it well. So this, I feel, goes back to the story that you shared. And I know there's a story deep down in there where you talk about cold calling because you told me the story. Let's go into that, because I think that's going to help people to understand the gravity of the situation when you say cold calling saved your life. And then hopefully we can extrapolate the three main points from that. Is that fair enough?
Sure, for sure. Yeah, so the story is an interesting one. I'm in Canada, so for your listeners in Canada, I think this will resonate. But
So you
hopefully
guys
it
are
hits.
nicer people, yeah.
We
Than the
say a
Americans.
lot.
Don't you know? I know that's the Wisconsin.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, but so I was selling cash registers at one point in time and
Okay.
decided, um, I was going to look for some greener pastures. Not that selling cash registers was a bad gig, but I was looking for the next challenge. Um,
Yeah.
and the restaurant business is a tough business anyway. So I wanted to be a what they call a 360 recruiter, which means that you own a desk, literally in an office, but you're also responsible for sourcing your own candidates and sourcing your own jobs to fill with those candidates. And I reached out to this guy by the name of Kevin Kirkpatrick, who was in medical recruiting at the time. And I did so, I think, with a couple emails, and then finally I called him, and he was like, "I was just waiting for you to call me so we could get this over with." And I was like, "Okay." Anyways, he goes on to tell me he's not in a position to hire, but he's heard of this company called TELUS. And for your listeners out there, TELUS is like the equivalent of what Verizon or T-Mobile corporate is in Canada.
Mm.
And so he had heard that they were hiring in my province. And I was like, oh, they kind of have a bad reputation. Like, I don't know. And he goes, well, see what you can do. Call my friend Darren Entwistle. Uh, Darren was just at a charity event with me, and he should be able to help you out. I'm like, okay. I'm pretty naive at this point, not realizing Darren is the CEO of this Fortune 500 company. So
Oh my goodness.
back then, I don't know, even probably today, you could go on their corporate website and find a direct number to the office. So I called it, and this woman named Nicole, who turned out to be his um, personal assistant, picks up the phone. And the first lesson is, always act like you belong. Because I simply, as soon as she got me on the phone, I said, "Hi, I'm looking to speak to Darren. Just tell him Jeremy Chen's on the phone." She said, "Okay, 1 second," and put me through. Well,
Dang.
not realizing that it was supposed to be that easy. Like, you're not supposed to, for context, this guy has his own private jet and security guards he flies around with. So you're not supposed to be able to just pick up the phone and call him like that. But I did, not knowing any better. And he picks up the phone. He's about to board the jet, of all things, and he says, "Hello?" And I said, "Hey, Darren, I'm actually a friend of Kevin Kirkpatrick's, and I'm actually looking for a job in a place called Winnipeg." And he goes, "How did you get on my phone?" And I said, "Nicole put me through." And he goes, "I don't handle this," and hangs up. And I'm like, "Oh man, that was over faster than it even started. I don't even know what to do now, right?"
Hold on. So did your friend really know him? This guy that you were connecting with?
You know what? To this day, I have never asked him that question. I have no idea. Maybe he just thought it was funny, didn't think I was actually going to do it. I have no idea. But yeah, I just called like it was nothing. Yeah.
Oh man, I love this. Keep going.
So, um, I think about 2 weeks passes, and I get a call from a woman by the name of Susan.
Mhm.
And she goes, "Hello, is this Jeremy Chen?" And I said, who's calling?" And she goes, "My name's Susan, and I'm the VP, or I think maybe at that time she might have been director. I can't remember anymore. But she was some high up person at TELUS, and she said, "I understand that you're looking for a job. How can I help you?" But she's like really nervous this entire time. And I'm like, "Yeah, I spoke to Darren, and I'm looking for a position probably in Winnipeg." And she goes, "Oh, okay. I know who to put you in touch with. This woman named Lisa will reach out to you." And before I could say anything, she hung up the phone. By this time, I'm like, man, two people in this company have hung up on me. Like, I don't know if I want to work here. Like, do people just hang up on people everywhere? Like, what's going on?
That's what
right?
happens when you get to the big leagues. You don't say bye.
Yeah, exactly. You ain't got time for that. You just, what do you want? Okay, thanks, bye. Right? So, about 2 weeks after that, now it's been about a month, I get a call from what would be my boss, Lisa Anderson. And Lisa um, says to me, she goes, I understand that you're looking for a job. Can you meet me at a Tim Hortons? And for those who don't know, that's like Starbucks here. And I said, okay. And I walked into Tim Hortons. Now, mind you, these people didn't know who I was. They've never seen a resume. They didn't know my qualifications. And I walked into the Tim Hortons. She shook my hand and went, so when can you start? And I was just like, what do you mean, when can I start? Like, you don't know anything about me, right? But I'm trying to
Yeah.
play it cool. At the same time, in the back of my head, I'm like, uh, I don't know what to say. So she explains what the position's going to be, and then it's going to be a new territory, and she's really assembling the team, and it's going to be this, that, and the third, and all these other things. I'm like, okay, cool. Well, I didn't want to sound too desperate, so I just told her I'd think about it. Well, she said she needed to know in about a week's time, and she would call me in a week, and I said, okay, sure. So I went home, and sure enough, she called me in about a week, and she said, so are you in or are you out? And I told her, I said, well, after thinking about it, I really appreciate everyone's time, and this is the part that people are just going to go, you're an idiot. But, I was going to turn it down. I just didn't think that TELUS's brand was going to be something that I wanted to carry on my back.
Yeah.
And honest to goodness, the only reason why I took the position in the end is because Lisa told me, she says, well, I understand if you don't take the position, but it would be really disappointing not to have you on the team. And in that moment, yeah,
Oh
heavy,
my goodness.
heavy, right? And in that moment, I said, I don't know who this lady is, and I don't know her from a hole in the wall, and I don't owe her anything, but I'd hate to disappoint her, so let's go. And that started my career. And then I would go on to hit President's Club and all these other things, but that same year. But yeah, it was one hell of a ride for sure.
Cold calling got you this job. Cold calling set you on a path where you're at. Were you hitting President's Club in the previous roles that you were in?
No, I'd all worked with like smaller type mom and pop
Yeah,
companies,
you're
which were
selling that
great.
to.
Selling to my local corner store or restaurant or whatever, and it was cool. But like I was saying earlier, that's a rough business. You're up at all times of night. When you're serving bars and restaurants, they don't close till 2 or whatever. And if something breaks, you got to be on hand to service it.
Hmm.
So I really wanted to get out of that business. And slinging, business phone plans was my first foray, believe it or not, into that.
So here's something that I want to go back into considering and thinking. There, you mentioned several things here. One of them was the idea of pretend like you belong or act like you belong. Like I have a right to be here. You did just that. You spoke with confidence. It sounds like on that call, you didn't sound like you were pressured. You didn't sound like you're worried. And maybe did you know who Darren was? You didn't know who Darren was,
Nope.
his exact role. And I think that's one of the other parts too, right? You didn't have this built up tension. I'm calling executive, calling executive. What have you understand? Like, you're selling to barkeepers, so to speak.
Hmm.
So and a mom and pop grocery store. So you don't have a. I imagine you would have been a little bit more nervous. Perhaps I'm wrong, knowing that you're calling the CEO of a big, maybe a Fortune 100 or 500 company.
No, you're 100% right. It would take me 10 years to really learn, like, hey, listen, Darren or Donald or me, we all put our pants on the same way, right? And so there's never any reason to be, I guess, nervous or fearful or have any type of trepidation in terms of calling on a prospect, right? But back then, I just didn't know any better, right? I didn't look him up or anything. I just said, well, Kevin told me to call him, so I'm going to call him. And that was basically the rationale.
What are some other major points that you took away from this story that we can help sellers with when it comes to being effective when it comes to those cold call?
You know what? I think the number one thing I would tell people above all else is just make the call, right? I know that a lot of reps that I deal with today, they're nervous, they don't feel like their leads are the greatest, their territory sucks, whatever. Make the call. You have no idea where your next call is going to take you. And I think that even in my case, in my story, right, I had no idea I was going to get a job at the place. I was trying to be a recruiter, right? But if I look back on it, making the call to Darren was one of the best things that ever happened to me, that I ever chose to do. And I would tell people out there, like, you can't, um, you can't make your decisions based on the past, right? So I don't care if you've made 80 calls and you feel like, oh, this list is a dud. I can never, I can never recover, and I'm not going to call anymore, and I'm going to go in the car and cry. You can't do that, right? You need to be able to pick up the phone, brush yourself off, and start again from fresh, because you seriously don't know where the next call is going to take you.
Love this idea. We talked about something too, and I think this is ties back to that first idea of being a feeling that you belong. Um, Not everyone is going to need to call a CEO on this episode, but you need to have what you're going to say down. We talked about how to deliver a pitch with a prospect in 1 minute. We talked
Mm-hmm.
about that in our first call. Maybe can you give a little bit of insights on that? Maybe there's something that we can glean, especially from the story, or maybe add on to it. But how do I go about doing that effectively?
I think that the number one thing that you want to start out with, and a lot of people, when I talk about this, sort of get a knot in their belly. And you're supposed to, it's not supposed to be comfortable. I use what's called a pattern interrupt um, in the form of complete transparency. So
Hmm.
if I call somebody and I say, hey, Don, this is a sales call. Would you like to give me 30 seconds, or feel free to hang up on me if you don't take sales calls? A lot of people don't feel comfortable with that because they feel like they're letting the prospect off the hook. I actually think of it the other way. I'd rather, if you're going to hang up on me, you're going to hang up on me, and there's nothing I can do about it, right? But I'd rather get it over with up front, because I think that a lot of prospects will waste salespeople's time, because salespeople, as we know, are full of hope, right? Oh yeah, this one feels good. It's going to close. It's going to go somewhere. I booked that appointment. I hit my quota. Blah blah blah. In my mind, I'm like, if this guy's not going to buy from me, just tell me up front. I can go find 20 other people that I can go deal with. So my number one tip here is, hit them with a pattern interrupt and tell them, hey, listen, this is a sales call. You can hang up if you want, or give me 30 seconds.
Love it. Um, the Within under a minute, we could say that. So, what do you say after that? At that point, how do you frame your messaging? Or does it matter at that point?
It does matter to a certain extent. I try to use non-industry type jargon, meaning that I try to dumb down what I say as much as possible so that it makes sense to anybody walking by, and you don't even have to be in the business to understand
Mm,
what it is that I do. So from there, it'll probably sound like I help increase people's success when it comes to prospecting on the phone. I just want to see how you guys are doing in terms of hitting the phones. What do the KPIs look like? Are you booking new business, or is it kind of not where you want to be? And then I'll shut up about it, right?
mm,
Um, the shut up part in that, I think, is the most important uh, piece of it. Okay, you can almost say anything you want, but you cannot afford to railroad your prospects when you're just giving your pitch. So you want to make sure you frame it as a question and say, does any of that resonate to you? And then just be quiet about it, right? Let the prospect take over, and they will give you their pain, right? And it could sound something like, you know what? Yeah, you caught us at a good time. We've been trying to use the phone to prospect and reach more people, but it's been really tough. We've been trying cell phones, we've been trying office lines, we can't get a hold of anybody. Or you might hear, we actually don't have any salespeople at all, and everything is through referral, and we're doing quite fine. Thank you for your time, right? But the important part is, either way, you get a piece of information that you didn't have before.
Mm-hmm. And I love that component, that shut up and and just listen idea. Because oftentimes when you listen to traditional salespeople, they feel that they need to talk a lot. And I know we've talked about this on the show in the past and expressed this, but there's power in that. Just being quiet. The last area I want to kind of focus on relative to the story as well, and you kind of, we talked about this before as well, is how do you go from that to closing or booking an appointment? Somebody, you just like what you just did with me there. Even if we role played it, you gave me a little bit. You asked for my permission. You act like you belong. First off, you got my permission. I gave you the permission. Then you came and you delivered some value in your pitch there. Now I gave you my whatever reasons. How do you go about converting that into an actual appointment and not a waste of a call?
So the number one tip I would have, and the takeaway would be, probably you got to remember what your purpose is. A lot of people, um, they will get wrapped up in the call. They will forget that they're there to book an appointment, not sell the person on the first call. Um, and you got to remember that it only takes about 3 to 5 minutes, and it's very fast if you get somebody to actually communicate back with you, right? And so the key here is, after you have some pain indicators, at least, in other words, they have articulated that they're having some trouble on the phone or whatever your product or service solves. You take it away and you just tell them simply, look, it sounds like I might be able to help you, and sounds like is very important. You can't be 100% sure because you don't have the full story, even though you think you do. Um, and then you continue it by saying, I'd like to explore this further. Um, do you have some time? And make sure you suggest the time and the place. So if you're going to do it in
Mm.
person, say, I would love to come and visit you for 15 minutes, tour your factory, meet your people. Or I'd love to set up a Zoom call next week, Tuesday, 3:30. How does that sound? Right? And book the appointment while you're there on the phone. Send the calendar invite, make sure they receive it and accept it, and rinse and repeat, right? You don't have to go into big elaborations about expectations up front. You set that when you arrive the next time. For now, just get the appointment and get out of there because
Mm.
you have more appointments to go book. So,
Love it. This has been awesome. Your story, I'm sure many people got inspired today, got pumped by it. It's definitely entertaining, but it is motivating, to say the least, that you can, to inspire someone to say, you just need to go out and make it happen. Go back to what you said at the top, just pick up the phone, right?
just pick up
Just
the phone.
make the call. And, amazing things can happen from there. Don't be bummed out about the list. You can rake through that list. You can find more gems. Don't give up on that. If folks are listening to this and they want to connect with you, want to learn about how you can best assist them, or just to follow you and learn from you, what's the best way for them to go about doing so?
You can always get me at Jeremy at jeremychensales.com. You can visit our website. We'll be posting, I think, some blog posts and some podcast recordings that I get invited to, just like this one. So hope to see you out there, and happy selling.
Love it. Jeremy, thank you so much for coming on the show today, man. Appreciate you.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Hey, that was Jeremy Chen. If you haven't done so already, go ahead and connect with him on LinkedIn. I mean, I'm telling you, I would have been when I realized that I was calling that CEO. If I realized I was calling that CEO, I probably would have been puking. But you know what? Jeremy was cool, calm, and he was collective, and he had a wonderful conversation ish. But it led to great opportunities where he's at right now. And I highly encourage you to go through think about the fears, the things that typically holding you back. What's pulling you from not doing your outreach? Is it the fear of rejection? Is it the fact that you don't know what to say? I mean, you could learn. You're learning from this podcast and other podcasts. But I think the biggest issue that I find is a mental block that most people have. Apply the things that Jeremy shared today, and I promise you, you're going to see amazing success. Speaking about amazing success, our sponsors are giving you amazing things that you could use. I mean, tools that can help you to really thrive and succeed as a sales professional. Go ahead and connect with them. Take advantage of it because it works. It works. It works. It works. I would love for you to also to check out our content. We have free training programs on our website at salesevangelist.com. Links in the show notes, as well as our cohort training programs. We run cohorts every other month, whether it's our LinkedIn prospecting class, our sales foundation, our BDR prospecting, or if you're just trying to figure out how to improve and join our sales mastermind, we can help you with that. Find all the information down below in the show notes. As always, I want you to be able to 3 to 5x your sales pipeline with quality opportunities. I want you to raise your level of thinking. I want you to double your sales close rate, and I want you to go out and do big things. Thanks so much for watching.